The doctor said I needed 4 weeks of strict bed rest after major spinal surgery. My husband, Brandon, promised he'd take care of everything. But 48 hours after I came home from the hospital, he packed a suitcase, emptied our joint savings account, and walked out the front door, leaving me unable to walk, reach the kitchen, or call for help. He thought I was completely helpless. He thought without him, I would break, lose the house, and beg him to come back on his knees. What Brandon didn't know was that while he was living it up at a 5-star resort with his secret mistress, I wasn't crying in bed. I was making phone calls. 8 days later, when Brandon finally strolled back into the house and casually asked our housekeeper, "Where is she?" her 5-word answer made his entire world collapse in seconds. Welcome to BT Revenge Tales. Subscribe now for the most satisfying stories of ultimate payback. My name is Clara Evans, and at 34 years old, I thought I had built an untouchable life. As an independent architectural consultant, I spent a decade turning historic properties into modern marvels, earning enough to fully fund our 4-bedroom suburban home. My husband, Brandon, was a mid-level corporate account manager who always spoke about teamwork and devotion. But real character is revealed during a crisis, not comfort. 2 weeks ago, a severe degenerative disc issue required emergency spinal fusion surgery. The orthopedic specialist warned that the first 7 days post-op required strict, uncompromised immobility. Brandon sat beside my hospital bed, squeezed my trembling fingers, and swore he would manage my meals, medications, and recovery. Less than 48 hours after I was discharged, reality shattered. I woke up on Tuesday morning to the loud sound of zippers. Brandon stood by the closet, packing 2 large designer duffel bags. When I weakly asked what was happening, his face was stone cold. He casually informed me that my helpless state was suffocating his mental space. Without leaving a single bottle of water, my pain prescriptions, or my mobility walker within reach, Brandon took my luxury SUV keys and walked out the door. For 6 excruciating hours, I lay completely paralyzed by agony. The surgical incision burned like a branding iron across my spine, and my throat was parched dry. With every ounce of strength, I pulled my phone off the low charging dock using the edge of a charging cable. My joint banking app confirmed my worst fear. Brandon had drained our $50,000 emergency reserve down to $74. He hadn't just taken a break. He had left me to deteriorate. Around 1 p.m., the front door clicked open. It wasn't Brandon. It was Maria, our 60-year-old housekeeper, arriving 3 days ahead of her regular schedule because she had baked homemade broth for my recovery. When she walked into the master bedroom and saw me trembling in pain, she gasped, dropping her tote bag. Maria immediately brought my medication, water, and ice packs. As she helped stabilize me, her face tightened with fury. She revealed that over the past month, she had overheard Brandon whispering on the terrace about plane tickets and luxury suites with someone named Chloe. Propped up on orthopedic pillows with Maria keeping watch, I opened my laptop and started digging. Brandon thought my physical vulnerability made me completely defenseless, but my mind was sharper than ever. I bypassed our shared dashboard and logged directly into our master financial records and credit line portfolios. What I discovered turned my heartbreak into pure, unyielding resolve. 3 days prior to my operation, Brandon had taken out a $90,000 emergency line of credit using our joint property equity as collateral. The money trail didn't stop there. He was currently registered under a VIP penthouse booking at the Palms Vista Resort in Miami alongside Chloe Vance, his firm's 24-year-old regional marketing coordinator. Worse, hidden inside a synced cloud folder labeled Private Holdings, I found a drafted listing contract with a cut-rate real estate brokerage. Brandon had forged my digital initials on an agreement to list our property for a rapid liquidation sale, planning to claim I was medically unfit to manage my assets while he pocketed the liquid payout. He wasn't simply taking a reckless holiday with his mistress. He was actively preparing to leave me homeless. At 8 a.m. the next morning, I called Arthur Vance, my family's estate attorney of 15 years. Brandon had made one fatal calculation in his scheme. He forgot that our 4-bedroom property was fully funded by my premarital inheritance trust, leaving him with zero legal claim to the deed. Within 48 hours, Arthur executed a complete legal lockdown. We revoked Brandon's medical power of attorney, canceled all secondary credit cards under my name, and reported the fraudulent $90,000 home equity drawdown directly to the bank's fraud division. The forged real estate liquidation contract was immediately voided with formal cease and desist warnings sent to the rogue broker. Next came the physical eviction. By day 5 of my recovery, I could stand and walk with a cane. With Maria supervising, a licensed bonded moving crew packed every single designer suit, golf set, and personal item Brandon owned into 32 commercial storage crates. I had the entire property rekeyed with smart biometric deadbolts and installed private security cameras along every perimeter. I arranged temporary private nursing care at a quiet coastal wellness villa. Brandon thought he was returning to a ruined invalid. Instead, he was walking straight into an empty fortress. On the afternoon of day 8, a taxi pulled into the driveway. Through the living room's smart security feed, I watched Brandon step out in mirrored sunglasses, sporting a deep Florida tan and linen shirt. He reached into the trunk, grabbed his luggage, and strutted toward the front door with complete arrogance. He inserted his brass key into the lock. It didn't turn. Brandon rattled the handle, scowling, before pressing the electronic doorbell repeatedly. Maria opened the heavy oak door just wide enough to block the entryway. Brandon pushed past her without a single word of greeting, wheeling his bags into the foyer. The entire house was completely transformed. My luxury furniture was draped, his shoe rack was gone, and the living room was dead silent. Brandon took off his sunglasses, looking around the barren hall in growing irritation. He expected to find me sobbing on the sofa, desperate for his presence. He walked into the kitchen where Maria was packing her cleaning supplies and asked casually, "Where is she?" "Tell Clara I'm ready for dinner and my key isn't working." Maria wiped the marble counter, looked him dead in the eye, and replied, "She moved out your life." Maria slid a heavy legal manila envelope across the island. Inside was an immediate court-ordered eviction notice, an emergency restraining order, and formal divorce papers citing gross medical abandonment and systemic financial fraud. Brandon scoffed, pulling out his phone to call me. The call dropped instantly. His line had been disconnected from my corporate plan. In growing panic, he opened his banking application. Every joint card was frozen, and the $90,000 line of credit had been recalled under active criminal investigation. Seconds later, his phone chimed with an email from his employer's corporate ethics board. Arthur had delivered the Miami resort receipts directly to executive HR, exposing Brandon's misuse of corporate travel funds for his trip with Chloe. Chloe dumped him via text 30 minutes later to protect her own position. Stripped of his cards, his luxury vehicle, and his status, Brandon stood in an empty foyer with nothing to his name. 6 months later, my spine was completely healed, and I was walking without any pain or assistance. The divorce finalized with decisive speed. The court ordered Brandon to repay every dime he had misappropriated from our marital funds, alongside hefty punitive damages for willful endangerment. With his corporate career destroyed and his reputation in tatters, Brandon was forced to move into a rundown studio apartment on the far outskirts of town, working 2 low-wage shift jobs just to cover his mounting legal fees. Meanwhile, my architectural firm landed its largest commercial contract to date. I kept the house, gave Maria a generous permanent pension, and reclaimed my peace. Leaving someone at their lowest doesn't break them. It reveals their true strength.